Welcome everybody to the Springfield Township regular meeting. It's June 8th, 2021 at approximately 5:30 p.m. Mr. Burning, can we have a roll call?
Yes. Ms. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Honlaw?
Present.
Mr. Burning?
Present.
All the trustees are present.
If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Burning, if we could get if we could get approval of the minutes for the regular session, May 11th, 2021, and the regular work session on May 25th, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Burning, could we have a financial report, please?
Yes, Mr. Burning. For the month ending May 31st, 2021, the township expenditures were $1,699,638.79, and the receipts were $560,542.55. The ending cash balance of $24,674,415.06 includes obligations to expenditures, payroll, regular operating costs, ongoing capital improvement projects, and investments. I do request a motion to approve the receipts, warrants, payroll expenditures, updated current revenue and reports for the period ending May 31st, 2021. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
The motion carries. And I want everyone to know that our financial reports are available for viewing at our administration offices during regular business hours or 24/7 on our website. Thank you, Mr. Barney.
Thank you. Mr. Gilbert, do you have action items?
I
and
do,
discussion items?
I do, thank you. The first action item I have is to set the date and time for the required 2022 tax budget public hearing. As the board is aware, the tax budget is sort of our initial kickoff to the subsequent year's budget, and it is the budget in which establishes the previous year's expenditures and revenue, the first half of the current year's expenditures and revenue, and the sort of prediction or the estimate for the revenue and expenditures for the second half of the year. The tax budget, again, being the beginning of our budget cycle, is in July. Obviously, the board then adopts a temporary in December and a permanent in March. So what I would ask is what we typically do is we have that public hearing at our July regular meeting of every year. So my request is to have the required tax budget public hearing for the 2022 tax budget on July 13th of 2021 at 5:30 p.m. during our regular meeting in July. Entertain a motion to that,
So
if
moved.
that's okay.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Looking at activities update, looking at the personnel update, we did have the resignation of 2 part-time medic firefighters in the fire department, Steve Bean and Hunter Morgan. They have left they were actually hired full-time by other departments, so they have left us temporarily as part-time employees. And hopefully they will come back in their off days with their full-time employer, but time will tell. We did have the new hire of a part-time medic firefighter, Derek Greenlee, start June 1st of 21. We had the retirement of Chris Anderson of the police department. His date of retirement was May 28th, 2021. And how long was he an employee?
25 years.
25-year police department employee. So we wish him well in his retirement. And we did have the new hire of Andrew Kemper, Daniel Trevsker.
Correct.
There's a good chance I was going to butcher that name. And then Timothy Unwin. Ooh, 2 for 2. So we did have the hiring of 3 police officers in the police department, and we have several more to go. I know that through attrition, we have some turnover in the police department, several individuals that have left the service altogether, some retirements. But we are getting some good candidates that are applying and hiring, so we're appreciative of that. And then in the Arts Community Center, we did have the new hiring of Laura Rusnek, and they had the resignation of Lindsay Shepard, both guest services monitors. And that concludes the personnel update. And then looking at the community events and programs, Kim is actually back at an event at the Arts Center tonight and was unable to make it tonight. So I know there's some upcoming events. June 11th, we have the Bourbon and Blades event, which is a watch party for the individual that does our metalwork back at the Art Center. He conducts those classes. He was on a television show, so they're having a watch party to watch him in on that competition and bourbon tasting on June 11th. And then June 23rd, we have an event with Cynthia Lockhart and Meet the Artist. And then it looks like July 9th is our first movie on our green space back there in front of the Art Center. And then July 23rd will be our first concert, same location. And July 29th, an additional concert. August 13th, looks like another movie night. And then September 9th is Beers and Gears event, which is a car show with concert and drinks will be served. And then September 16th, looks like we have another art event back at the Art Center, Cole Porter Reimagined. All of our events are on our website, and then obviously the new community activity guidebook just came out. So if you have any interest in taking classes or being a part of any community event, I would suggest you take a look at that activity guidebook. They're doing phenomenal things back there. I think they were just awarded the Cincinnati Family Magazine Best Arts Center for art classes and events. So they were against some pretty stiff competition. So it's just a testament of the good work they're doing back there at Arts Connect. With that, the board has copies of other departmental activity reports, so unless there are any questions of those, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbert. Next, we have resolutions. The first one is resolution number 58, 2021, approving a land use map amendment from residential single-family to industry light for parcels 590-0203, 0121, 590-0203-0122, 590-0203-0123, and 590-0203-0124. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next is resolution number 59, 2021, authorizing sale by internet auction of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for use property in the police department. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next is resolution number 60, 2021, authorizing sale by internet auction of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit for use property in the fire department. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Resolution number 61, 2021, declaring nuisances pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 505.87 at various listed properties within Springfield Township and authorizing statutory actions necessary to abate the nuisances. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Next, we have resolution number 62, 2021, establishing assessment for abatement of nuisance and certifying same to the Hamilton County Auditor. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
Ms. Davis?
Aye.
Mr. Honolaw?
Aye.
Mr. Bernie?
Aye.
Resolution carries.
Do we have any old business before the board?
I do not this evening.
How about new business,
Yes, Mr.
Ms.
Mayor.
Davis?
Yes, I do have new business. I just wanted to take just a minute or so to just highlight our respective departments here within the township. A lot of you all know most of the good work that our department heads here do for you on a daily basis, like making sure your streets clean in the wintertime when it snows. You make sure that your police department responds to anytime you have a call for help. But I just wanted to highlight some specific things that I think are very important and make me very proud to be a trustee here in the township that our respective departments have done here recently. So last week, myself and my colleagues had the honor of attending the Springfield Township Police Department Awards Banquet. And at that banquet, they give each officer who's confiscated a gun off the street a dog tag. So in total, in 2020, our Springfield Township police officers confiscated 120 guns. So that means that those are 120 less guns that are left on the street to cause danger to possibly you or a loved one or a family member. In addition, in our fire department, our medics partnered with the Council on Aging to go around and administer the COVID-19 vaccine to elderly and homebound patients. I had the distinct opportunity to go ride with two of our medics last week to do that, and residents were extremely, extremely happy that our fire department and our medics were able to partner with Council on Aging to come out and administer those vaccines. Saturday, our Office of Innovation and Sustainability, under the leadership of Kathleen Kennedy, and in partnership with Mike Gould, our Director of Infrastructure and Development, hosted our first Neat Streets event, Neat Streets program. So we were out in the community of Seven Hills, and we had 10 volunteers. They picked up 22 bags of trash, 8 couches, 40 tires, 4 mattresses, 2 pickup truck loads of miscellaneous garbage, and 2 additional 30-yard dumpsters were also filled by neighborhood residents. And you just mentioned, Mr. Gilbert just mentioned about the wonderful recognition that our Community Arts Department just recently received. Kim Flynn was wonderful back there, and there's always some type of program that is either kids enrichment for children, programming, yoga classes, all those types of programs happen daily. So I know that there's a lot of times, you come here and complain about things that are happening in your community, and that's what you're supposed to do. That's what we're here for, to listen to you. But I just want to let you know that these people here, sitting at this table, are the leadership here in Springfield Township, in addition to Mr. Chris Gilbert. And you all should be very proud of the leadership that you have here in Springfield Township. I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. And so if you ever have an opportunity to see these guys on the street or see any of their staff on the street, just thank them for all that they're doing for your township to improve the quality of life for all the residents. So that's my new business. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy.
Thank you.
Next, we have citizens' participation. If anyone would like to speak to the board, please come up to the podium, state your name and address, and if everyone else could be quiet while they speak, that would be lovely.
Lori Patton, 8807 Fountainwood Terrace. I want to address my friends here. The traffic is too fast on Lent Road and on and the noise around, the boom, 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 is getting to be ridiculous. And to the other administrators, I think you all need to be more in touch with the landlords. Work with them, HUD, or whomever, so that they keep their property in line with everyone else on the street. I don't know if you all give them the necessary paperwork to let them know that this is what we expect. You need to keep your property up. I don't know how many people are allowed to be in a house. but a lot of these things aren't being addressed. So I think that's, oh, and there's garbage on our street too. And I noticed the other day there was a sign on a post about a roof, and I tried to pull it down, but I couldn't. Okay.
Thanks, Mary. You can come on up, but in response, Mary, thanks for coming tonight. In response to, do we talk to landlords? Yes, we do. And one of the resolutions that we passed here tonight, which was declaring nuisances at various properties, I didn't count them all, but there's probably close to 100 on there. And if any of those are rentals, which I can tell by looking at the ownership on my spreadsheet that I have, I can tell some of those are probably rentals. Quite a few. We do send a certified letter to the owner, not the tenant. So they are aware that their property's in violation. They are made aware that if they don't rectify it, what the penalty will be. So yes, we do notify to tenants, and more importantly, we notify by certified mail the actual property owner or the landlord, in other words. So they are made aware. We do tell them that. Regarding some of the other stuff, clearly, loud noise, loud car stereos. I think more often than not, most of the loud complaints we get are from motorcycles, this loud motorcycles. But car stereos are one of them too, and it's one of those things, where you hear it, and if our police officers hear it and they're aware of it, they do address it. But unfortunately, sometimes they're not in the same spot when you're hearing it, and by the time they're gone, right? They're down in Cincinnati by the time you call us or whatever. So it's a problem. I really don't know how to deal with the loud stereo thing unless the person's static and staying in one place and we can go to them and address it. If they're moving down Winton Road or down your street and they're gone by the time we get there, that's one of those things that's difficult to enforce. Regarding litter, yes, we're going to be moving that Neat Streets program around to not only Seven Hills, but we're going to be taking that program to every neighborhood in the township eventually and cleaning up, litter in different neighborhoods. And we do right now, even prior to that, we will provide you with the tools and material that if your neighborhood wanted to get volunteers together, we'll give you the bags, the litter sticks, we'll bring a dumpster out to your community, whatever you need to do to clean up your neighborhood, we'll help do that and facilitate that for you. In regards to speeding, every see that map? All 400 streets of Springfield Township talk about speeding. And generally, we have, at the most 7 to 8 officers on the road at one time to cover 18 square miles in all 400 streets. We do our best, and we'll do directed patrol and radar in certain streets. We'll bring out the speed trailer. It's a problem that's prevalent everywhere, and I don't mean to diminish it, but I just want to set expectations that we're going to do everything we can to curb it. And what we find generally is that most of the people speeding, unless you're on somewhat cut-through street, but if it's a neighborhood, generally the people speeding are your neighbors that are living in your neighborhood. That's what we find with our speed camera. And but Chief, I don't know if you want to
specifically good to see you, Mary. Specific to Winton Road, last month we still, is a very busy month. Summer's upon us. We still found enough time to write 179 tickets. And I can promise you the majority of those are on Winton Road. And I'm trying to remember the daily count of vehicles on
50,000.
50,000 vehicles on Winton Road. So, we can't catch them all clearly. That's 50,000 a day. But clearly we know that speeding's an issue on Winton Road and every other road in the United States, unfortunately. But Winton Road is one that we do a lot of proactive enforcement on. So.
Your comments are spot on, and we're going to continue to try and, even though some of the problems seem insurmountable, we'll continue to try and work on them. Sorry, sir. Apologize.
Good evening. My name is Michael McCoy. I live at 8950 Fountain View Terrace. And just to piggyback a little bit off what Mary was talking about, I'm unfortunate to be between two houses that the lawn is just overgrown.
Okay.
I called the township several times, and they do respond, but it seems like it should be a little bit more quicker. And I understand you have to get a hold of the landlord and that sort of thing. But on one side of me, I had a neighbor, his name was Craig Hampton. He was in a wheelchair. He passed away, and now his nephew is in the property. And Mary helped me look it up. They haven't paid any property taxes. They're like $2,000 behind in property tax. They're just living there. Dog barking all times of night. But, you know, it seems like something can be done with the bank or something like that in order to make sure that they comply with the rules and regulations of the township. And I also would like to piggyback on what Mrs. Davis is talking about. I voted for the police levy, the tax levy. You guys are doing an awesome job. Special police department, you call, you're right there handy. But I want this committee to know that in the future, it's going to be an influx. Queensgate is getting ready to move out 550 families, and most of them are Section 8 housing. So where are they going to go? So I'm just warning you now that the neighborhood is going to be changing. I don't know how quick, but they're going to be out of here in less than a few months. So there's 550 families that's going to be displaced. So I don't know if you guys can make an ordinance on how many Section 8 families. I'm just throwing it out there. I don't know these, but I'm just bringing to your attention what's getting ready to happen in the inner city, where they're moving everybody out from the inner city. And one other thing I want to understand is there a committee working on some of these break-ins that are happening in the Finneytown district? Because my car was hit, my next door neighbor's car was hit, car down the street was hit, and it's just, this is the first break-in I've had out of the 19 years I've been living here. So that tells me that the neighborhood is really changing. So I was wondering if there's a certain task force that's working on these type of activities. And that's all I got to say.
Our impact unit, if you're familiar with that, that's a group, that's 3 officers that work a variety of hours. They do a variety of things to specifically address things just as you're referring to. They have been working several areas in Springfield Township as far as the car break-ins go. This is, again, not just unique to Springfield Township. What we're finding is that cars all over in the tri-state, and again, I hate to say it's all over the country because I don't want to minimize it because it's a serious problem. It's part of the opioid abuse that's going on in this country, where people are getting things that they can quickly sell to obtain heroin and fentanyl of the like. So yes, we do have our impact officers are assigned full-time right now and have been for about 5 or 6 months, specifically to car break-ins and then to problem locations of liquor license establishments. So yes, we do have that.
My son's car was broken into, not at home, he was out somewhere, and he had several $100s worth of clothes in the car because he was moving home from college. They didn't take anything other than the change that was in his console. Makes no sense.
No.
But in response to your earlier comments regarding the houses on either side of you, the reason the process takes so long, and our attorney here can jump in, but there's due process the state requires you to go through before you can legally assess someone's property. So my point is, if we send out a letter and someone doesn't comply, they don't cut the grass, and we go out and do it eventually, that isn't free. We assess their property taxes for the cost of us doing that. Before you can assess someone's property taxes, they make you go through a very laborious process and due process in order to do that. So it can take us, not even because we're slow, it's because of the legal statute that we have to follow. It can take us up to 45 to 60 days to get through the state process that they require us to go through before we eventually can get on the property and cut the grass. Now, the good news is, if there is a good news, is that after that first initial violation, and we get to that point, the subsequent violations become much quicker. We don't have to go through the same due process again. So the first one takes longer. The second one takes a little less time, more probably in the 3-week range rather than the 45 to 60 day range. So we wish it was much quicker. It'd be easier for us too if we didn't have to go through all the administrative loopholes and paper and hoops, but that's just something that's the state law we have to follow. Regarding Section 8, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to mention that. Years ago, this happened, there's been several times, it happens every 5 or 6 years, where one of those large concentrated housing, sort of government housing projects close, and then those individuals get vouchers and then they're dispersed out into the county and different communities and neighborhoods. That's sort of what you're referring to. We have tried to reach out to our federal legislators because Section 8 in the Housing Choice Voucher Program is a federal program. It's something that's controlled at the federal level at HUD, out of DC. We've reached out to them. We've went as far as to write legislation for them that would limit the number of Section 8 vouchers to be allowed in any one census tract area, which is how they sort of track population. They don't track it by neighborhood. They have something called census tracts. So for us at the local level, we'll do the same thing. They will not touch it. They have no interest in it. And because it's a federal program, what happens in Ohio, people outside of Ohio could care less. So we've tried, we continue to talk to our federal legislators about that issue, but unless something happens in DC to change the housing choice voucher law, there's nothing here locally at the township level, at the county level, or at the state level that's going to do anything to change where people can take a Section 8 voucher and live. It's all controlled at the federal level, unfortunately. But
Thank you.
Robin Hendley, 6341 Ridgefield Drive, and I'm pretty sure there's not a person in this building that doesn't know who I am.
nice to meet you, Robin.
Yeah, thank you.
Robin?
Just as some background, the property maintenance code that you passed some years ago, the Finneytown Civic Association was active, and we worked out a situation with the township that Jim Golan and I would go out once a month. We'd do an early Saturday morning drive-through. We kept a list, kept it updated. It was probably more formal than it needed to be, but you understand Jim was an engineer. So that was the way he wanted to do it. I scribed, he drove, he talked, I wrote, and he did all the stuff.
I remember working with you and Jim.
Correct.
A lot.
And it worked out real good for several years. Well, a couple things happened. First of all, he got very sick, and Jim died about 2 years ago. At about the same time, my job got to be more than I could do. I had family obligations, so I was kind of left solo in the Finneytown Civic Association. After many years of shrinking membership and inability to get new leadership, we decided to disband, and you're aware of that. Then COVID hit, and sort of everything just came to a standstill. Well, hopefully COVID's over. I'm getting out of the house more. I'm working at home more, so I've got a little bit more time on my hands, not driving, being tied up with the commute and things like that. So this weekend, I drove all of South Finneytown. I did the whole thing. I haven't gone north yet, haven't gone west yet. That's next weekend. So I put together and got quite a list, and these are not just high grass. There's other issues. In addition to that, there's a number of things going on in my own neighborhood, and of course in Mary's on Fontainebleau. Mary and I are on the phone with each other about every day, keeping each other sane through COVID because we're pretty much homebound. I came up with quite a few on the list, and as a courtesy, I called Mike because he's been extremely good, as has Andy, to follow up on stuff as I've called them. Between constraints on the phone, their schedules, my schedules, everything else, we couldn't get it together before the meeting. I called him out of a courtesy because I know you guys don't like to be ambushed. I get it. I was in your seat in a similar but not same thing. So I'm going to try to get this back on track where we can get it done regularly. And then, Chris, you and I discussed today about a kind of an easy way to get it to you so you get it to the right people so that we can kind of do the follow-ups, and I'll do that. So I do have the list here. Mike was busy. I couldn't answer the phone. My door was shut. Andy got tied up. So here's the list. I counted 17. 6 new ones on the way to Kroger's last night, 1 coming here tonight.
It may be on that list of 100 I talked about earlier. I don't know.
They probably are, because I noticed that one of them, the 3-foot-high grass on the corner of Harberry and Greenfield, it was cut this morning. Now, they left all the grass on the sidewalk and all over the street, but they did cut the grass. So I'm not sure if you call that resolved or halfway or what the deal is.
Well, put it this way, they complied with the law.
Yeah. So anyway, I've got that part of it done, and then I also drove Mockingbird from end to end. I do that all the time, because I don't like Winton Road, and I'm in and out of Kroger's like I own stock in the place. I deliberately drove slow, and I deliberately hit 57 potholes from end to end. You might want to get a hot patch truck out there, because there's a lady that lives on the corner of Farm Ridge and Mockingbird, and if she blows another tire, she will be up here loaded for bear, and I think you know what I'm talking about. So you might want to do that when you get some spare time.
That's our plan to slow down traffic, curb speeding.
These,
I'm joking.
I know. And I know that the street's bad, but you might want to at least patch it in, because with all those rains, it's
Sure.
washed everything out to the curb.
It's on our list.
I figured it was, it's just when you happen to get it on there. One more thing, there is a snipe sign on the corner of Fontainebleau and Winton.
It'll be gone before the morning.
I can't reach it, she can't reach it, and they put it in with a railroad spike. I couldn't get it out if I tried. So, yeah, it's one of those big ones right in the pole. So I can't get it down because, like I said, it's way up there for a normal
The funny
size.
part is, I see those sometimes, but I never see the person on the ladder doing it.
Well, that's it. I mean, I take them down myself, a lot of us. Joe still runs around and gets irritated. Nancy gets irritated. She'll grab hubby and a ladder and they'll do it. But this one is something that's beyond our ability.
We'll have a crew out there in the morning to remove it.
So if you could get that, we would appreciate it. But I'll give Mike the list. There have been some issues on Ridgefield Drive that go beyond property maintenance. Had some conversations with Rick Bly, and he updated me today that they're working on them, but these are more serious than property maintenance issues. And there'd been some discussion with him about maybe setting up a meeting with the residents on our street and on Fontainebleau to kind of discuss where that's at and what's going on. And I'm sure, at least I can speak for my neighbors that are here, we'd welcome that. I will add that every single one of the properties is a rental.
Yeah.
It is a Section 8 property, and it is a negligent landlord.
I can tell you this, on that list of 100 I talked about, one of those nuisance properties, you know who the owner is?
Well, I know who some of them are.
CMHA.
Well, that's kind of what I was looking at, too.
So, and then, in response to the other serious issues, I'm sure Bly explained to you, we'd be happy to talk to you. Obviously, there's only so much we can tell you if it's an ongoing investigation, especially in a public setting on television. I don't know that we really want to explain exactly our tactics in dealing with some more,
Understood.
sensitive criminal issues. However, I think they'd be happy to explain to you, how we do handle those in general. But, we obviously want to, make sure that we keep our officers safe too in terms of the activities and some of the things that they're deploying to mitigate those issues.
Understood. And as a comment, I'm very familiar with CMHA. I've done work on both sides of their fence over the last 20 years. Yes, it's a federal program, but they have standards that they're required to do or they can lose their match funding as well as the tenants.
Here's what I'll tell you CMHA told us. In the past, they did work with us on nuisance properties. Since probably about 4 years ago, they have, their statement is, go after the property owner, which is what we're doing. But they are not going to remove somebody's ability to accept Section 8 because of property maintenance or zoning violations any longer.
I agree, but the tenants have a certain amount of standards that are required. For example, the property maintenance, yes, that's the responsibility of the owner of the property. Would you agree? But the conduct of the tenants is within the confines of their lease.
Sure.
And that's spelled out in their subsidy agreement.
No, undoubtedly. I guess what I'm saying is, we always had a good working relationship with CMHA into going to them and saying, hey, this tenant, this property owner isn't maintaining their property. CMHA no longer is getting involved in those issues.
Good.
They are taking a hands-off approach and saying, that's between you and the property owner, keep us out of it, which is unfortunate because we looked at them as a valuable partner in the past to help resolve some of these issues and remove non-compliant property owners from their program. They're no longer doing that. Now, the police department still has a relationship with them when it comes to more serious criminal issues. But for us, on the property maintenance zoning nuisance side, they're no longer involving themselves in that process, which is unfortunate.
And I have to be cautious what I say too because of the nature of what I do for a living.
Sure.
But don't feel like the lone stranger because they don't return my agency's phone calls either.
Yeah.
That stopped about 2 years ago also, so I get that.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I'll get this to him. I think the neighbors would welcome. If you want to set up a meeting, formal, informal, however you want to do it, and just try to give us the update you can and maybe how we can get information to you. Every property that's been a problem is a rental. It is the same landlords all the time. Those of us that have issues with it have owned our homes and have been there 20 years or more. We've got an investment, and we need to protect it. And if it gets too far, it's the broken window syndrome. You're going to end up, and I said this before, you will lose neighborhoods. And I don't think the township wants to do that.
No.
So,
But yeah, after the meeting, talk to Assistant Chief Bly, and we'd be happy to set up a meeting to, get everyone together and explain to you how we plan on tackling and how we are already, currently, dealing with some of these issues.
good enough. And for me, I do appreciate what you guys do. You know that. And Chris, I've told you before, some of the changes have been put in place. I've lived a lot of places. I've lived in 47 different places in my lifetime.
You move too much, Robin.
In 3 states, and I don't know how many political jurisdictions. And I can honestly say I've been happier here than any place else. And that's a true fact. And I also told you, too, that I think Kim was one of the smartest decisions that you ever made when you hired her. I'm just totally impressed with what
Don't
she's
tell her
done
that.
back there. And all of those things that she's done. I'm just overwhelmed with that. I think she's done a great job.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, Robin.
Hey, Robin, one thing I would tell you, as Chris said, not only does CMHA, say we don't want to get involved in those kind of things, we actually tonight cited them for a nuisance on a property on Roosevelt Avenue that they own, the agency themselves. So they're not even taking care of their own stuff. But, and Mr. McCoy, I was going to say, as to the thing about how long it takes, we do follow through with this. Tonight, our last resolution, we cited 9 property owners for $3,679.86, a liens put against their properties for failure to cut weeds. And before you leave tonight, and this is something for everybody out there, some of this stuff, because we are a big jurisdiction, has got to be complaint driven. Some of it we'll see and we can address, but if we'd like to get the addresses of your properties on Fontainebleau, I don't know if they're in the process or not. I didn't see any on this resolution
They may be on a
tonight.
previous one or in the works now. I'd have to go look on the system.
We'd have to look, but give us those addresses and we'll go out and inspect them and see if we can cite them and try and get some relief for you. Okay? All right, thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the board?
Okay. Thank you.
What is the law in our township about parking in your front yard?
Well, it's a violation of the zoning code. So
How do we address that since we've called the law?
yeah. So what?
I know you're busy, and that's
Yeah.
like the last thing in the world to go get this guy's parking. But it just makes the neighborhood look like hell.
I agree. Here's what I'll tell you, is that it is a violation. What the code says is that you can't park on you have to park on a paved surface.
Correct.
To make it probably is more eloquent than that in the code. I'm just being more crude. It's what it says. Now, the problem we have is when we go out and we tell them that you can't park here, as soon as they move the car, it's no longer a violation. Then when they park there again the next day, it's a completely new violation. And that's the way the law looks at it.
Why don't they address that as, here's the first warning, second time it's $80 or whatever?
It's not the way that the state law allows you to enforce zoning, unfortunately.
Change that then in the township and to make it, because they're parking, you did it on Hempstead. You got most of those cars out in front yard, but there's one in there today.
But Hempstead, obviously, because of how that street was dealt with, but
We got one house that parks 4 cars in their front yard. And they're the kind of guys, you eat a hamburger, and I go to my garbage can if I eat a hamburger in my car, but they choose to throw it in my street. Our new Section 8 down at my house, I'm out there cutting grass for an elderly couple. I pick up all the trash down there that these people are throwing out. All their friends are coming from Westwood, is what she told me. Everything goes out the window. Yet the garbage can's right there in the driveway, her kid, after I picked it up, I said, pick your garbage up. She's throwing it in the street. You address me, talk to my child. I said, okay, well, tell your child to pick up her trash. I mean, what do we do about that? Is there a handbook or something that the landlord could give to Section 8 housing that says this is how you live?
Yes,
in a community?
here's how we deal with those situations. When it's one that's sort of an egregious violator, let us know what that address is.
Okay.
And then what we will do is, even though technically they can find the loophole and they can move the car every day and get around the violation aspect of it, I'm not even gonna deal with the tenant. I'll call the property owner and we'll say, we'll have a conversation with the property owner, put it that way.
And is there allowed noise ordinance still enforced?
It's,
I mean, from a house that's playing, I want an effing party, and it's quarter to 12 on a Tuesday night.
yes.
Cranked as loud as it'll go.
What's the time limit?
Is it 11 o'clock? It used to
11
be.
p.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yes.
So do they get a warning the first time?
We try to be nice
I
about
understand people were
it. We do like to give a warning,
Mhm.
which typically we will do the first time we come out. If it continues, then we'll cite them.
Okay.
But we generally try to give a warning the first time, unless it's a house that's, going on all day, every day, which
Right.
we do have a few of those, I get that.
This one's-
So,
And then we also have an issue, I'm dealing with District 5 because I live behind Northern Hill Swim Club.
Oh, yeah.
The base over there rattles through my house, through an air conditioning, through closed windows, and I've called them numerous times, and they can't do nothing. I know it's out of your jurisdiction.
Is it in the park,
It's in
across the street?
park. It's that loud that I can hear it
Yeah.
Holy cow.
across the street, through the swim club, through their soft music, and
Yeah.
into my house through a closed building. I know y'all can't do anything
Yeah.
about that. I was just concerned. And then my house next to me, I cut the grass there for 8.5 years.
Mhm.
Because it was a vacant building, just
Sure.
to make it look presentable.
Right.
Then I get kind of pissed off because your new building code people write my house up, and Rob can contest to my house is one of the best looking houses on the street. I had 2 ladders in my driveway. I got rode up for tools laying in my driveway. Is that kind of petty when I said, why don't you get the house up the street? The awning's falling off the house, the front door's falling off the house, there's sheets in the window, and the grass is this tall.
And we probably did write them up too. And it could have been that someone called and said something about the ladder. I don't know. I don't know the circumstances of how it got.
Someone called too, and I find that very hard that any of my neighbors call me.
Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you this. Our inspectors aren't driving around and writing people violations for ladders and driveways without being, they're not doing that proactively. Someone called us.
It was a Sunday morning, I was shocked, what is this guy doing in my driveway?
Sunday morning.
It was a Sunday morning, he drives on Sunday morning. He says he periodically drives through the weekends. I don't know his name, he's probably in that blazer you got now, it says something on the side.
Okay.
That's all I have. Just wondering if there's some sort of law or a handbook that we could give to the people that are renting, that are coming into the community. that
Yeah,
don't own a home.
There actually is, and we do have that, and we can provide that to them. What I would ask is that after the meeting, give Mr. Gould the addresses of the properties that we're talking about, and then especially note the one that has the cars parking in the yard, because I would like to have a special conversation with that property owner.
Yes, sir. And one other thing about garbage, is that supposed to be in a contained Rumpke thing, right? That the township's providing them now?
Yeah, as opposed to what?
As to just sticking your garbage out there in the street in Haskins Lakes.
Well, yeah, that's littering.
Well, it's garbage bag, just go garbage bag out there, then all the raccoons come around and tear it up, it's all over the street.
Yeah, it needs to be in a container with a lid.
Okay, so I'll tell you that address too.
Okay.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you, Matthew. Would anybody else like to address the board, sir?
How are you? Yeah, good deal.
George Smith, 6321 Greenfield Drive. And you guys have actually touched on everything that I wanted to talk about. Speeding, okay. Greenfield is a very narrow street.
Very, yeah.
Very narrow. And there's people, well, I heard, I don't know what you call it, little sign that you stick up that shows you your speed limit.
Yeah, we call it the speed trailer.
I heard that there was a guy trying to figure out how fast he could go from North Bend to the stop sign. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff we're dealing with. The other thing is, we have one of the residents or addresses you're talking about having a meeting with, okay? There's a lot of traffic going in and out of that house, okay? And since we're on TV, I really don't want to touch on it too much.
Here's what I'll say, they're aware, and our agents are working on it.
So much, you guys touched on everything. All right, at least I got out of the house today.
Brave this occasion, huh?
Sorry we didn't have any snacks.
Good to see you, George. Take care, brother. Good to see you.
Would anybody else like to address the board? Good evening.
You remember me?
Yeah,
About 40 years ago, man, we're old.
that's,
We're old. God, what happened? You look terrible. And I look worse. Okay, my name's Carrie Davis. I'm the Director of Child Advocacy for Rights and Equity. We've been a nonprofit in the state of Ohio since 2003. Our biggest claim to fame is acquiring a $32 million order from Governor Taft requiring a return of $32 million to over 100,000 Ohio residents, and that was our baby. We want Ohioans to do for that. But anyway, I have people in your community, but I'm from Coleraine. I'm here, first of all, I want to share a couple things for you. On the nuisance complaints, if it followed the same framework of law as in Coleraine, at the very bottom of the nuisance law says it's a criminal offense to violate any of these things. So you can dual pursue nuisance complaints, both administratively and through a legal citation. That gets a little bit quicker response. And then the administrative processes deal with the long term. On your speed bump joke, do you know they actually have speed dips now? They actually promote those. I thought that was funny. On the housing issue, there's actually a provision under federal law that I worked under back 20 years ago. And there's committees for each housing district. They have board meetings. And you can really get a lot done if you go to those board meetings and raise hell instead of going past them to other people. Because they are in the power to vote on what you want done, such as the federal statutes allow for a pilot project to require the disbursement of Section 8 housing over, you can't have more than one in a certain number of mileage. So that was something I was fighting for 20 years ago, and I couldn't get nowhere to do nothing. But it exists. But the reason I'm here today is two things. One, and they're both regarding Rumpke. Okay, you guys just signed a contract with them. You're charging your residents 10 cents, a month to pay an entity that Coleraine Township has now determined ain't one squat. And they canceled that provision of the contract because that company was paid to negotiate the contract. We determined there was one word made different in that contract. One word, other than the part where your residents have to pay them. So they canceled that portion of the contract, and I recommend you do the same because that company is not providing any services for that 10 cents, which ends up over the life of that contract to hundreds of thousands of dollars that your community could spend here instead of putting in the pocket of a private consultant. The other issue with Rumpke is the big reason I'm here. Your residents are on my pages. I run the Cincinnati Post news website, and your residents are on my pages talking about how the stink from Rumpke is hitting them. And in a research project, spurred by the new, you guys know Rumpke's going to expand again. They're going to expand all the way to Buell Road. They also are expanding the landfill
in Whitewater Township. Over 3,000 people have signed a petition against it. But in my research to address this issue, what I learned was that our Hamilton County Board of Commissioners has the authority to determine where garbage comes into our county. For example, Rumpke, the garbage smell, 50% of that is not even from Hamilton County. It's from surrounding jurisdictions. Under the EPA statute regarding the solid waste management plan, our Board of Commissioners actually has the right to say, don't bring your garbage, stop dumping on Hamilton County. And they've never exercised that duty. They have the right to determine where landfills are going. So some counties, for example, Butler County, they don't have a single landfill because they're dumping on Hamilton County, right? They have rules. And that's why there's no landfills out there. We have none in Hamilton County. All right, the stink, which is a criminal offense. Whenever you smell it, you should be citing them under the statute for violating the nuisance laws. It's a criminal offense for the odors, offensive odors to cross your boundaries and go on someone else's property. But, so I found this body of law under the Solid Waste Management Planning Committee. They have an advisory committee, but it all comes to the Board of Commissioners. So they can cite it where the landfills go. If Rumpke wants to put one in your backyard, right now, without the county exercising their authority, they can move one here and you're stuck with it, just like already. They can designate what garbage we'll take in and make rules that apply to nuisances, traffic, all kinds of stuff. And in Hamilton County, we've never exercised these duties. I brought the issue to the Board of Commissioners. They've referred it to the prosecutor's office because they think I'm lying. I don't lie. I'm pretty good at my job. I was an expert witness in administrative law in that $32 million lawsuit. But they do have the authority. So what I'm asking you to do on behalf of your residents is to individually, I would like everyone to write their Board of Commissioners and tell them this can't wait. We don't have a year. We don't have 6 months. This is an issue of weeks before Rumpke gets another permit. Right now, they're asking in Coleraine for a waiver of the pollution limits, which comes right to you guys in your neighborhoods. And so if we don't start acting immediately, we're going to be stuck with it. So I would like all your residents and each of you individually to write the Board of Commissioners and asking them to please assume their duties and start exercising their powers immediately to protect our residents. Southwest Hamilton County is taking everybody's trash. I would also like this board to consider, after you have time to look into it, make sure I'm not mistaken, and pass a resolution that demands that you want the Board of Commissioners to use their powers and authority to protect your residents from the hazards, nuisances, and problems that arise from putting landfills in residential areas or close to our parks or close to our scenic byways, that kind of thing. Any questions? Boy, I went on and on, didn't I? Now you remember me? This. Any questions?
No?
No, thank you.
Well, how do you all feel about us having rules? Do you think we should have rules on where landfills are to be placed?
Well, apparently they do have rules, and the county commissioners are choosing not to exercise their
For
right.
over a decade. It's like they didn't know. When I brought it to them, I wrote them a legal brief, cited it to the law, and their jaws dropped. And I went to the Solid Waste Management Committee meeting, and their jaws dropped. So, of course, Mr. Rumpke is on that board. Bill Rumpke is on that board. So it does not surprise me that this issue has never been discussed in over a decade. But they acknowledge that they have the authority to do it. They have not done it. And we've got 2 permits right now pending. And if they don't act quickly, we're stuck.
Well, I know they're planning on expanding. I did know that, but I didn't know the county commissioners had the ability to stop that.
I think it's under 3745.31. I think is the citation about the solid waste.
He's the lawyer, I'm not.
I know, he was a good lawyer to me. I would expect more questions. How do you feel, Mr. Arnold?
Honestly, I have to look at the things you're saying here and, look into it myself to form an opinion.
The same.
I have my notes.
Everybody's looking into it.
Been taking a lot of
I
notes.
told commissioners, while you're looking into it, Rumpke's making progress. And so time is of the essence. You have to act quickly. This is not something, one excuse I heard from the committee was, when I presented to them, oh, you got perfect timing, we're reviewing our plan. Well, that plan takes a year and a half to develop. By then, Rumpke will have 400 tons a day going into the Bond Road, and they may have more going in Coleraine. I said, we don't have a year to wait. We don't even have months. We have 2 permits pending. We have weeks to act.
It doesn't take us a year and a half to react, it's just that we'd like more information. So,
I appreciate that, but just so you know, time is of the essence.
thank you for making us aware.
And you guys are really great. I've been going to a lot of trustee meetings promoting this issue and talking about it. And I love your exchanges with your residents. They're nothing like Coleraine. I mean, our trustees, you guys talk directly to them, answer their questions, you give them immediate feedback, So I'm just really impressed with the rapport you have with your residents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can go ahead and sit down. I'm going to respond to something you said relative to our agreement with Rumpke. It's from my perspective, it's unfortunate that Coleraine chose to essentially, in my opinion, violate the agreement that they had not only with the consultant but with the bid spec that was sent out. And frankly, I could argue that they're in violation of the bid specifications for not going ahead with the customer service administrative charge of 10 cents a month. Now, why did we do that? Well, there's multiple reasons. One of which is when you hire a consultant, which we did in part because Coleraine wanted to go to bid. I mean, if we're being honest, and I think this needs to be aired out there, is that under the previous contract that we had with Rumpke, which every resident, both in Coleraine, Springfield, and at that time, Ross Township, in the previous 5-year agreement, saved almost $400 over the course of those 5 years off of what they were previously paying per month for Rumpke. So there's undoubted sort of evidence that entering into that contract saved residents money. In that contract, it gave us the ability to go to Rumpke directly, avoid rebidding it, come up with a mutually agreeable rate and term, and continue on with the same program. That's what we wanted to do. Save residents time and money and hopefully get a better rate, because Rumpke wouldn't have to go through the bidding process, we wouldn't have to do all of this. Coleraine didn't want to do that. They wanted to bid it. So for us in Springfield, knowing that we're going to get a better rate if we partner with Coleraine, just because of economies of scale, said, we don't think that's a very smart thing to do, but okay, we will have to go to bid with you. But in order to do that, I say the board, the township, wanted to have a third party negotiate and handle that on our behalf, because we can't negotiate for Coleraine, nor can Coleraine negotiate for Springfield. So we needed a third party that we both agreed to do that for us. That's what we did. Well, how do we compensate the consultant for doing that? And here's the misnomer. The consultant isn't just getting paid to walk us through and negotiate and handle the bid process for us. It's ongoing customer service support for the next 5 years of that agreement. In the previous agreement, I heard a lot of complaints about people would call Rumpke with issues and Rumpke didn't resolve them. So instead of the township hiring township staff to take calls because of a Rumpke issue, which we never had before, because if you called us before, I'd say, that's an agreement with you and Rumpke. We can't get involved. Now we can, because there's an agreement. The problem is that I don't have the staff to handle those calls. We're lean and more efficient here. So I said, what's a better way to do that and give the residents the ability to have an advocate that would fight for them to make sure that Rumpke is upholding their end of the bargain with the contract? Well, it's to have every resident pay $1.20 a year. And that goes to the consultant. Now, for us, that means that over the course of the 5 years, to be completely transparent and do the public math in my head, I went to public school, so the math is a little foggy for me, but it's about $85,000 over 5 years. And what the consultant's going to do to not only to handle the bid process, but also to handle all customer service complaints that any resident would have and work on behalf of them to resolve them with Rumpke. So if a resident has an issue with Rumpke, they don't have to call and fight with Rumpke. They call our consultant, they fight for them. And they get that service for $1.20 a year. So in return, what do we get for the $85,000 over 5 years and $1.20 a year? Residents save on average of $300 over the course of 5 years. So a $6 investment gets them a $300 savings. And if you look at it aggregate, $85,000 over 5 years, and then do aggregate savings, is about $4 million over the course of the 5 years for the 17,000 households in Springfield Township. Pretty good investment on my mind. And frankly, not to disparage another community, but they kind of did that without, they were our partner in the bid process. They went and Rumpke and negotiated this backdoor deal to have them pay the consultant directly and not have the residents do it. They didn't even notify us they were doing that and violating the bid spec and the agreement that we came up with. Frankly, it's not really a community I want to emulate. To your point, you don't have these kind of dialogues at their meetings. So it's probably one more thing that I'm not necessarily interested in emulating that they do. However, I would hope that my residents and the township residents, the board's residents would understand that the only reason we signed a contract with Rumpke is to save residents money. There's no other motive for us. Additionally, the reason we did this agreement with the consultant is to have a customer service agent available to them to work as an advocate for them to resolve any issues they have. So $1.20 a year per household, for them to save almost $300 per household is a pretty good deal. And the consultant made their money in the first year, in my mind, because the cost increase, there was no cost increase from 20 to 21. So your rate didn't go up from 20 to 21. That right there saved you in excess of $6 for that entire year. So that investment was more than paid for itself in the first year. So while I understand that your opinion is that it probably isn't valuable, it may not be valuable to the residents of Colerain, but in my mind, based on the complaints and the issues that we dealt with over the previous 5 years, having that advocate for our residents to be able to call and work to resolve issues that they may have with their services at Rumpke is well worth the $6 a year investment that they pay.
I love your argument. I love your argument. I love the response. I can even buy into it, that it's going to work for your community. So thank you for that honest, gosh darn feedback. Let me point to you, and you may not be aware of it in your contract. Do you recall the penalty page, Rumpke's penalties?
Yes.
You want to make that contract mean something to your community. That $10,000 deposit that they're required to give, over the course of 5 years, Rumpke's never been asked to pay a single penalty. I would talk to your consultant and really get some bang for the buck, since he's going to be fielding the complaints. I mean, if they miss this gentleman's garbage and don't come and pick it up for a day, that's $100 for every day it sits. If they miss a whole neighborhood, like they did in my neighborhood a year and a half ago, and they didn't come for 4 days, it's like $5,000 per day. You know, so Rumpke has these performance measures.
I'm aware.
In their contract. We have begged Colerain Township to enforce these provisions. I mean, these are to make sure Rumpke provides good service. They refuse because they have a very close
Here's what I'll tell you. Rumpke is not going to not pick up garbage in Springfield Township for 4 days.
Well, it happened in my...
We'll hear about it and we'll react immediately.
And here's what I will tell you. I do know this, and knowing this, Rumpke and Colerain have a unique relationship. And I'll put it delicately.
Love, hate.
So for us, it's a different animal. So that's the rationale for, that's my perspective.
I'd love to see somebody actually enforce that contract and the penalties under
And we've used it, we've threatened it, and we've got the issue resolved before we had to.
And by the way, I'm not anti-Rumpke. I mean, Rumpke is, here's my line, Rumpke's a great corporate citizen. I think they do a freaking great job. I can forgive them messing up in my neighborhood if they had people out sick, because I think they're a great corporate citizen. What I want them to be is a good neighbor. And that's where they're kind of dropping the ball, when they put a landfill in a residential neighborhood, when they keep the open face of the landfill larger than is necessary. That is what creates this thing.
Right.
In Kentucky, you're not allowed to have that open face open 24/7.
Right.
In Ohio, we don't have that law. But Hamilton County can make that law.
We'll look into it, but thanks for coming, Carrie. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address the board? Okay.
I'd just like to say one thing on this, though, and this kind of goes back. It's been the philosophy of this board for 20-plus years that when we see things out there that we can do that's going to help our community, help our citizens, we'll do it. There's nothing in the law that says we have to have a garbage aggregation program. There's nothing in the law that says that we have to have energy aggregation programs. We were actually one of the very first jurisdictions in this part of Ohio that, really in the state, that got an energy aggregation program off the ground. And we met with other jurisdictions, Westchester, Liberty Township, and some of them went along with us and some of them didn't. And it took some time. Some of these people would, they were pulling their hair out, getting the whole thing off the ground. But we've saved our residents millions and millions of dollars in their utility rates because we went out of our way to do something to try and add a little value added for our citizens. And there's the same thing with everything else. Somebody can find a criticism of it. Some of the things that you've talked about, I haven't heard here. I know we had residents, a year or two ago, this was actually in my neighborhood, complaining that Rumpke was coming at like 3 in the morning and waking them up. And well, we brought it to Rumpke's attention. Now they show up at 9 o'clock. They do in mine.
In my neighborhood, it's been 4 o'clock. I can't even complain about it. It stopped for about a week. It started right back to coming 3:50 a.m. every Monday morning.
Michael, you have to tell us about these things, or there's nothing we can do about it.
Chronic complainer, they stopped for a week and then they started.
But that's not a chronic complainer. That's them appeasing somebody for a week and then going back to exactly what they were doing wrong before.
We just need to know that. We need to know that. I will tell you, in the neighborhood where I live, there were a number people came in here, and they've, never been out there early like that.
I can assure you, if they don't stop, to Carrie's point, we will utilize the provision of the contract and they will be fined. Now, but I can't make them stop doing something if I don't know they're doing it.
Yeah.
Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad about calling us and telling us what's going on.
That's why we're here.
We can't cover 18 miles and we go from past I-75 out past 275. It's a big community, so we need your eyes and ears out there to tell us exactly what's going on. And if that's happening, we need to know.
Yeah.
I'll have Robin call them, then they'll stop coming at it, really.
Since everybody's picking on Rumpke, I was just going to catch you on the way out. We got a new garbage man in the Greenfield subdivision, and they do a good job, but the big problem is, and I know it was raining like crazy on Monday, it was like a monsoon. They do a good job, they get in and out and move like little rabbits, but what they need to do is put the cans back on the curb, not in the street.
You know what drives me crazy when it's raining? If they leave the lid open.
I know.
They always do that. They always leave the lid open.
Yeah.
I worked for a garbage company. I worked for one of their competitors for 2 years. They do that so you know that they've been there and your trash is empty rather than full. There's a reason behind it.
I thought they were trying to wash out my garbage can.
No. The other thing is that when they use the automated dumping process, the lids do not flip back. And there is no design out there that will make them.
Now you're defending them, Robin.
I know how the garbage company works. I work for CSI.
I know. It's hard. It's hard to do.
But yeah, the new guy, he probably figured, if I run faster, I won't get gets so wet. Well, it don't work that way. But virtually every garbage can on Carberry yesterday morning was in the street. I had to literally move 3 of them to keep, so I could drive. They gotta understand, they can't do that. They gotta get them back on the.
If they're coming before 6 a.m., let us know, and I'm gonna get our money's worth with the consultant.
Well, that's just it. I don't know who this consultant is, so could you kindly pass that on?
It's the same entity that's been doing our energy aggregation programs for years, and they're phenomenal at customer service and dealing with vendors to resolve issues, which is why we selected and contracted with them to do this.
Yeah, just have them chat, put them back on the curbs. I mean,
Yep.
because if they're in the street, they're gonna get hit.
Yeah, you could make it some
Sounds
money
good.
if you directing to log them. Your contract requires that
Yep.
Rumpke is supposed to be tracking every single one of these complaints and giving you a report every month, and you're supposed to be cashing in that report out of the $10,000 deposit they put. And no community has ever dared to ask Rumpke to pay the fine. I'm not saying I'm not pro against Rumpke. I'm really not. That I need Rumpke, but fair is fair. You got a contract to enforce it.
If they don't resolve it, then we will.
But Carrie, just so you know, Colerain, we were gonna just do a straight deal with Rumpke and do it on our own, and that was what we were talking, and then Colerain said, let's go in together, and to do it together, we brought in somebody outside, and the customer service factor was and it was Colerain's idea. So.
It was Corey's idea to go to bid, not.
Right, to go to bid. We were just gonna make a deal with Rumpke and be done with it. They said, no, we should go to bid and this and that. But the idea was we'd have between us and Colerain 90,000 residents. The consultant would have some clout with Rumpke because they don't want to lose 90,000 residents. And then Colerain, of course, does what they normally do and backed out. So, and that's their prerogative, and that's
But
fine.
here's something that'll really tee you off. Rumpke just got a contract in Covington, Kentucky, which is we're taking their garbage. They pay less than us, and Colerain and you guys.
Do you know why?
Because they got a contract.
No.
All kinds of work.
No, that's not why. It's because it's a single bill, meaning Rumpke has to send one bill to the city.
True.
And that's where Springfield Township residents would pay a much, much, much lower rate if they didn't have to bill each one of you individually. If they could just send a bill to the township and we pay it, then your rate would be much less.
Yeah. Because
That's why,
the same way.
and then Covington charges their residents on their water bill or some other way. That's how they do it. That's why it's cheaper.
Which we don't have that mechanism.
We don't have that ability to do that.
So we looked at that too, and that wouldn't be practical here.
Right, that makes sense.
Well, if nobody else,
I got one more question.
come on.
A few years back, you had dumpsters out here where people could clean up a bunch of crap in their yard.
They're right out.
The recycled, the
I'm
recycling.
talking about they were tires, you could bring.
Oh,
We just did that.
Did you win?
Last month, we had a tire recycling day. We'll talk after the meeting.
Yeah, okay, because you used to be able to take air conditioners, all
Yeah.
kinds of,
Yeah.
dumpsters all set up over here.
Well, we're, like I said, the Neat Streets program, we're gonna come down to different neighborhoods and do that. Maybe the next neighborhood is your area and you can be able to do that.
Thank you.
Yep. Mary?
Everything you guys do.
Mary, come back.
It was my understanding that the township planted the trees on our street. And when I moved down the street, there were small trees. Now they're humongous, and the roots are raising up the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Who is responsible to cut those roots back? And don't tell me.
You're not gonna get out there and do that? No. I don't know that if those trees are planted by the township. Obviously, I wasn't here then. But I can tell you is that the trees that are in the right-of-way in front of a private residence are the responsibility of the resident. However, before you hit me with your stick, the sidewalk is something we maintain. So if it's affecting the sidewalk, we will fix the sidewalk block and remove the root that's causing the issue.
I wish I knew that before I paid $2,000 and 2 trees cut down.
Now, I didn't say we'd cut the tree down, I said we'd fix the sidewalk.
Raising up the sidewalk, and then I would have an issue with somebody tripping across there. So I went went ahead and had 2 trees cut down, which was a couple $1,000.
What, now you don't have to pick up any leaves.
My next door neighbor, they won't do it anyway, so.
I know, I'm just kidding with you. But in all seriousness, we call us if there's a sidewalk issue. We'll go evaluate it. We have a standard by which we have to determine whether they're replaced or not. But
All right. Does anybody else have any business before the board? I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.